Okay, so today we're going to look at functions. It's the 920 packet from class today. And what we're going to do is use our calculator to help us. Remember, the best thing is anytime you have a function, and if you're given the equation, to actually use your graph to help you. So here we go. Starting with number 1, we have a parabolic function, and they're asking us to graph a line at y equals 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a line. This is y equals 5, and draw it. Use your graph, find the values of x, where they intersect. So I'm going to be looking here, I'm looking here, and here. And so those x values are -2 and 4. So it's just asking for the values of x. So I'm just going to say x equals -2, x equals 4. When it says find the value of x that gives a minimum. So if you're looking at the graph, it looks like it's right about here at x equals 1. If you're not sure, and this is a parabola, what you can do is use the axis of symmetry formula, which is x equals -b over 2a. We can say, okay, that's -2 over 2 times 1. So you do get 1. Remember, this is your A, this is your B, this is your C. So that is the actual minimum at x equals 1, which would be your answer. We did number 2 in class, so the next one we're going to look at is number 3. Number 3 shows a graph of two linear functions, speedy taxi and economic taxi. They give you the equation for speedy taxi up at the top. So that equation is $1.80 per each kilometer plus, oh, excuse me, not $1.80 plus. It should be 10 cents for each kilometer plus $1.80. In part A, they're asking us to write the equation for the cost. So if we're looking at the equation for the cost, and we know that this is a line, we need a slope and a y-intercept. So the y-intercept you should be able to see is at $1.40. The slope then, if you think about talking about rise over run, so we rose at 80 cents. We ran by 10 kilometers. So our slope then is 80 cents over the 10, which gives us 0.08. So then putting this all together in terms of an equation of a line, k is the same as our x. So we're going to say cost is 0.08 times k plus $1.40. How much will he pay for traveling 7 kilometers? Well, 7 kilometers, that's our k. So I'm going to say c equals 0.08 times 7 plus $1.40. And I get a total of $1.96. How far can he travel for $2? So now this is the actual amount. So I have $2.40 equals 0.08k plus $1.40. Subtract $1.40 from both sides, you get 1 equals 0.08k. Divide, and you get k equals 12.5 kilometers. Okay, so remember, we're not given equations, we can find them. Question 4 we did in class, question 5 and 6 we did in class. So the next one that we are going to look at is question 8. Question 8 is what we call an exponential. We're given an equation, but it doesn't have all the numbers filled in. So we can't look at the graph ourselves using our calculator. What we can do is use the graph that they have for us here. So it says find the values of c and k. If we're looking right here, this is our y-intercept. If we're looking at the equation, the y-intercept is the number by itself. So what that's telling us here is right away, we know c equals -5. So we have part of our equation complete. And now we just need to figure out what the k is with that number in front of the two x's. So we have y equals k 2 to the x minus 5. And we know that point here is at x equals 0, y equals -5. So if I plug in y equals -5 and x equals 0, anything to the 0 is just 1. So then if I add 5 to both sides, I get k equals 0. And there we go. We have the values of c and the values of k. Okay, going on to question number 9. Question number 9 looks like a trig graph, and they give us the equation of that graph as y equals sine ax plus b. So don't get confused what they call a and b. It doesn't matter. B is going to be our y-intercept, and a is going to be what we call the frequency. Now, sometimes you've seen y equals a sine x b or something like that. So don't get confused with the a and the b. That's not important. So we have the graph. It says using the graph. So we're going to use the graph that they give us. Write down the following values. The period. Period is how long it takes to see one full curve. So if I start here, I go up, I go down. How long did that take? 120 degrees. The amplitude is sort of like the height. You can look at from an endpoint, how long it goes to the min or the max. Okay, so it's the same distance here it is it there. So that distance there is 1. 0 to 1, you can look at it there. And B, well, B in the graph here, again, remember, is the y-intercept. So where is it crossing? It's crossing at 1. Calculate the value of A. A, where it is in this equation, is what we call the frequency. So that means if A we recognize as the frequency, that means how many curves do we see in total 360? We see all 1, 2, 3. So A equals 3. Okay, 2 more questions to look at. The next one, we have lines. Okay, we have 2 equations of lines. Marked between them is a right angle, so that means they're perpendicular to each other. So these are the 2 equations that we have. Write down the gradients of L1. So that's the number in front of x, so that has a slope of 2. Gradient here has a slope of -1/4. Which of the 2 lines did they draw incorrectly? Well, you can go ahead, graph these in your y equals 2 screen and check it out. And you should realize that L2 is slightly off. And they say, how can you tell from your answer to A, looking at our slopes, this is the slope of line 1, this is the slope of line 2, that the angle should not be 90. Well, if they're perpendicular lines, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. And so we can say because the slopes are not opposite reciprocals. So they should be opposites, meaning negative and positive. Reciprocals meaning if you have a slope of 2, then the other slope should be -1/2. So they're not opposite reciprocals. Draw the correct version. So go ahead, you can use your calculator to do that. What I would do is type in the equation and then you can check the graph from that. Okay, last one, figure 11. You're given 2 equations again. This time you're given x squared and y equals 2 to the x. Write down the coordinates of point A. So you can see A is here, it's a y-intercept. So the y-intercept here, if you use your graph, you can type in both of these equations. So by typing in these equations into your y equals 2 screen, let's see if I can get there. So y equals x squared, y equals 2 to the x. And what I'm going to do is, based off what I read here and what I see in the graph, I'm going to change my window to match theirs. So their x-min goes from -2 all the way up to +5. And their y values, they changed also. They're going from 0 up to, the y values going up to 20. So you don't have to do this always, but sometimes it might be nice if your graph matches theirs, and then hit graph. Otherwise, we usually hit zoom 6. So now we can see that we can hit trace. And it looks like I'm on the wrong curve to figure out what A is. So I hit up and I go over and I type in 0 and I get 1. So the coordinates there of point A right here are 0, 1. Write down the coordinates of B and C. So you can use on your calculator the second trace function to where these curves intersect. And so what you need to do is get close. So scroll over close so you see that blinking dot close to where it looks like they're going to intersect. And then you just need to hit enter 3 times. So there we go. That's one of them, 2, 4. And you can repeat that for the other points. So point B right here is 2, 4. And you can repeat that for part C, doing the second trace. And point C is going to be 4, 16. You can also repeat that again for point D over here. It's just asking now for the x coordinate. Be careful if it's asking for coordinates versus x coordinates, and you get x equals -0.6. Let's write that. X equals -0.767. Write down using interval notation for all values of x, for which 2 to the x is less than or equal to x squared. So x squared is this u here. And I want to know, when is that greater than 2 to the x? Well, it looks like just in this section here between B and C. So interval notation for that would say, okay, well, the x values were 2 and 4. So 2 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 4. You can also do 2, 4. So the most important thing on functions, make sure you know how to use the calculator to graph and to use all the abilities to trace. Zeros, mins, maxes, everything like that. Okay,